This is hands down going to be one of the biggest crypto market updates that I've done so far. We've got PPI data coming in very shortly, and the Fed are getting pushed. And even BlackRock are saying that you need to reduce your interest rates by 50 basis points. We had a 10% chance of getting a 50 basis point decrease. Now, what's happening? 14.2%. So the pressure's on the Fed, the pressure's on the Fed. And are we going to get that 50 basis point decrease, which creates the catalyst to drive the market forward and put stimulus into the market, bring the interest rates down, lower people's mortgage rates, give people more money, allow people to take out more loans, and then start pushing into one risk? There's lots of questions there, and we're going to go over the macro as far as Bitcoin's concerned, as far as the S&P is concerned. The main two charts that I'm looking at are the Russell 2000 and Total 3. Are we going to get a breakout this week of the all-time high of the previous 2021 high of Total 3, creating that catalyst and creating confidence in the market to start pushing your altcoins up? And as we're starting to talk about altcoins, we've got all your altcoin requests. I've got Avax, Billy, Jasmy, Illuvium, so many of your altcoin requests. So it's going to be a big one. Let's dive in. We're going to go through these charts step by step, starting with Bitcoin, starting with the least risky asset within the crypto space. It's currently trading at 112,625. And you can see we've had a break of trend. We've held this support base. We've pushed out of trend. And as I said, with Bitcoin, the slow moves are going to be more common because Bitcoin has already done its run. Bitcoin's been running for 3 years, and we're starting to see a top on Bitcoin, and we're starting to see Bitcoin slow down as confidence start going into other altcoins. And we've seen that with Ethereum. As Ethereum started pushing up, and we looked at Ethereum against its Bitcoin pair. And what was happening? Ethereum was outperforming. You can see Ethereum's in a bull flag now. Once we get a break to the upside in Ethereum, we hit this 0.04604. That is half price Bitcoin confirmed. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to my previous video, 0.02302. I said if you bought Ethereum at this point and you sold Ethereum at this point, that is the equivalent of, if you converted it into Bitcoin, of getting a half price Bitcoin, and that's nearly complete now. If you want more of those videos, let me know, because we can go further down the risk curve and use things like Cardano, Solana, other metrics that are going to start outperforming Bitcoin to be able to accumulate that half price Bitcoin. If it did sound complicated, guys, let me know in the comments, and I'm going to do more updates on that. So you can see that Ethereum, that was the first indication. Once that started outperforming Bitcoin, that was our Ethereum season. So it runs in cycles, and this Bitcoin season here is when Bitcoin pulls back during a bear market, everything pulls back even harder. You get your Bitcoin season, and in Ethereum season, Ethereum starts outperforming Bitcoin, and within Ethereum season, you get your alt season. So we had this big long grind on Bitcoin season. We've come down here and we're starting Ethereum season. We're starting to get confidence in on risk. So we understood that Ethereum was the second biggest market cap leader. Once Ethereum started getting confidence, we would flow across the risk curve into other altcoins. So we now understand that Bitcoin is getting outperformed by Ethereum. We're starting the altcoin season because we're in Ethereum season. All makes sense, guys, when you look at the macro from a bigger perspective and look at all these charts overall collectively to paint that picture. So Bitcoin still putting in new all-time highs. Bitcoin just broken trend. That's looking strong. The S&P continues to keep putting in new all-time highs, and the S&P is the least risky asset within the stock market. So we look at the S&P for low risk. When Bitcoin is starting to pump, you see the S&P starting to pump, and when Bitcoin starts to top out and the S&P starts to top out, you see other things like the Russell 2000 start to outperform, Total 3 start to outperform when the liquidity flows into these new high risk assets. So as we're talking about the Russell 2000, let's have a look. You can see that it's been pushing through and it's been pushing through. And I'd said once we've broken through this 78.6% retracement, we are likely to go back and test the all-time high. Does it mean we're going to break straight through? Because potentially when you hit a high, you get a resistance point. You get lots of sell orders at this point. So the Russell 2000 could do something like this: push up, pull back, create some kind of a flag, and then break through. But when the Russell 2000 breaks through, that's when Total 3 is going to break through. When Total 3 breaks through, that's my confirmation for alt season. And guess what? Total 3 was creating a bull pennant. Total 3 is breaking to the upside, and it's currently testing its previous high at 1.09 trillion. Its all-time high was all the way back up here, 1.14 trillion. Once we get a break and close of that, that is my indicator to start scaling out of the market in steps, guys, not all at once, in steps. I'm going to scale out the market the same as I scaled in the market. So all of these collectively are giving indications to exactly where I am or where we are in the risk curve. And the next thing we're going to look at is the others chart. Now, this is the important thing because the others represents high risk within the crypto space. So it's everything outside of the top 10, everything outside of the blue chips, all trading against Bitcoin. You can see they're outperforming Bitcoin. You can see we've got a golden cross. That is a big indication of risk. The altcoins outside of the top 10 are now outperforming Bitcoin. We've now had a golden cross. And once we break this level here, 0.146308, there is going to be such an acceleration in altcoins. So as we flow down the risk curve, you can see people are starting to go more on risk. You can see as far as the macro is concerned, we're starting to get more stimulus. You can see as far as the macro is concerned, we have got such a high probability of at least getting a 25 basis point rate cut, 83%, 14.2%. If we got that, guys, there's less of a probability. But if we do get that, that is going to create such a catalyst. You wouldn't believe how much that's going to create a pump in altcoins. So as we're talking about altcoins, let's go through them. Each one, Avax to start with. You can see Avax, it is in a bull pennant. It's breaking out from its bull pennant, and you've got your next resistance point up here at $32.06. So that's looking good for Avax. Right now, it's breaking trend. We've got Billy. Look at this thing. What you'd be waiting for on Billy, you're going to be waiting for this trend break here. Simple, simple, simple. You can see we're just about to get a golden cross. Oh, in fact, we had a golden cross. We're just about to get a death cross. So what do we need for this death cross to be reversed? What we need for this death cross to be reversed is this break of trend for us to come back, for us to hold these levels and then push to the upside. And that would create a reversal, and that would create a death cross, which would then reverse into a golden cross. So as far as Billy's concerned, that's not one for me yet. It doesn't look ready. Jasmy coin. Jasmy. So it's holding support at the 61.8% retracement. We said in the video that this is the important level, 0.01422. And we really need to see if we can get out of this range. And you can see one thing is we're clumped underneath the moving averages. You've got your 200 here, you've got your 50 here, and we're about to create a death cross. And like I say, the only way that that's going to be reversed is if we do this. Push to the upside above the moving averages, hold the moving averages support, and then get past this biggest area of traded volume. This is the barrier for Jasmy coin, 0.01673. Once we get past there, then you can start seeing bigger swings. Look, this is the accumulation phase. These are designed to absolutely wreck you. These are designed to make you feel like something that you think is going to be something that you think was going to happen for 199 days, 200 days isn't going to happen. And once you capitulate out of the thing that you think that's not going to happen after 200 days of pain, guess what happens? I'm not going to say it, guys. Right, Illuvium next. Illuvium, it's breaking trend. Look at this. Let me tidy this up a bit. So this one's looking quite positive to me. It's breaking trend now. Let's get rid of all this. Let's get rid of the prices, get rid of that. Right, we've got support here. $14.32. We talked about Illuvium before because we'd had a break of trend. We'd come back down and we had lots of support down at this area here. And you can see that there was plenty of buy orders at this level. I said $15 was a good level. We dropped the $15. We dropped the 200 daily moving average. And now we've pushed back through. So this $14.28, that's going to be a real strong support base for now. But we've got the 50 period moving average. And you can see we're getting rejected from this. So you know that that's going to be a resistance barrier. And that is $15.36, but you're really going to start seeing an acceleration after you get past $16.80 on Illuvium. Acceleration point goes all the way up to here, which is the next resistance at $35.67, which was this previous shelf here. That's a long way from where price is now. 137% to the upside. So that's what I'm looking for in Illuvium. ONDO next. You can see we're trying to break trend on a lot of these. Trying to break trend now. Today's going to be an important day. If we get some positive news today as far as PPI is concerned, and I don't know what the PPI data is going to come out like, but if it turns out positive or not as bad as what we think, then these are going to start breaking trend. They're going to start breaking trend. There's a lot of things that are going to start breaking trend. So for this one, we're holding the 200. We've broken the 200. You've broken the 50 period. Now you're above the 50 period, trying to crack trend. Once you crack trend, where's your next resistance barrier? You've got one here. 1.472. 1.472. And then what we can do is you can look for extensions from here to here. Extension levels from here once you do get the break, and once you do put in new highs, you've got your 1272, $2.57. When you get the big trend breaks, you get the big trend breaks. 1618, $3.10. Till it's happened, it hasn't happened. That's what I'm looking for on ONDO. HBAR, look at these. Trend break, trend break. We're waiting for a trend break. Try and try and try and. So the 38.2, that's the resistance barrier now. That's 23 cents. Once you break through the 38.2, you've got your 61.8. What does the 61.8 coincide with? This previous high. That's going to be your next resistance barrier. That's going to be your next resistance barrier. 61.8 is sat at 29 cents. So if you break through 29 cents, what's the significance of that? If you break through 29 cents, it's showing that you're likely to come back, test the previous high, and then put a continuation in. So if you're going to put a continuation in, we can do exactly the same thing. We can stick our retracement on there, and we can look for extension levels. Exactly the same. 1272, 47 cents. We've done this already. 1618 up here. What's happened? Right, okay, so you got your 1618, so you got 57 cents, you got 47 cents. Once you start putting in new highs and once you start breaking out these areas, but in the short term, we understand exactly what needs to happen. It's clear as day, need to break a trend. That's going to give the bulls the shift in momentum. So that was HBAR. We've got ONDO, we've done ONDO. We've got one next. Waiting for a trend break, waiting for a trend break. You've got your two moving averages above here. You've got your 200 period at 0.01175, and you've got your 50 period here, 0.01109. Once you break trend, you're going to take out the 50. If you break trend with a bit of volume, you're going to take out the 200. If we can hold the 200, we can hold the 50, and price action stays above, then you're going to get your golden cross, and price action is going to hold that as support as we start pushing in new highs. So it is a time to prepare now. You can tell everything is waiting to break trend. Everything's waiting for a decision. Exactly the same with VeChain. Waiting for a break, wait for a retest, waiting to push up. Once you got to break a trend, what's happening? You're taking out the 200, you're taking out the 50 daily moving average, you're flipping bullish. Where's the next resistance point? 0.03505. Once you get through there, look at this. Look at this. Your next resistance barrier is not until 115% to the upside. And this is what I mean. When swings get big, swings do get big. When you're in the accumulation phase and you're going up, could be 100%, back down 50, 60, 70%, back up 60, 70%. That is nothing in comparison to when you break these accumulation phase levels. So they're the resistance barriers for VeChain for me in the short term. Got PAAL next. So it's just dropped a support base. Not interested in this one. Let me just stick a trend line on here. Not interested in this one. You can see where it was rejected. It held a support base here, a shelf, a shelf, a shelf. We've dropped the shelf. You know that that's going to be a resistance point until we get past 0.09462. I'm not interested on that one. And you can just wait for a trend break. It's simple. Simple. These hold and carry a lot of weight. I talk about diagonals and I talk about horizontals. Horizontal trend lines, they create a consistency, they create a wall. However, when retail start coming into the market and retail start coming into altcoins, these diagonal trend lines, they work like a treat. So Chainlink next, same thing. We're doing exactly the same thing here. Trend, break and trend. You've got your 38.2 as resistance, 23.39. You've got your high here, 27.46. Once you've broken that, then you test in this previous high here all the way at $30.61. We're really going to start seeing acceleration when we start taking out the previous highs. So on that one, as far as like entries concerned, and none of it's financial advice, around this area here looks good to me. Once you drop this key area, you've got your 61.8 to fall back on, your 61.8 sat $19, just about $20. Dash next. Dash next. We're just talking about horizontals and we're just talking about diagonals. So yeah, diagonals work well, but this is a horizontal. This is a horizontal. This is a consistency. So this consistency is $25.43. What does that mean? Once we break there, you've got little resistance all the way up to $41.53, which is a move 64% to the upside. So you're waiting for a horizontal break here, 25.34. SUI next. So SUI's broke trend, SUI's come back, SUI's retested, and SUI is trying to break its 50 period moving average, and it's trying to break this new trend. That thing looks like it's going to rocket as soon as it starts pushing through this level. So where is the resistance point? $3.60. You've got the high here, $4.59, but this resistance is going to get less as we start pushing up because we're in a bull pennant. So that's a bullish move. There's a high probability of moving to the upside. Epic, this thing's come back down to a big support. Just stick that on here. Big support base here. So unfortunately, on this one, I'm not interested until I get a clear trend break, because if I don't have a clear trend break, I don't understand exactly where I can protect myself. This is the low here, $1.65. If we don't get a trend break, what could happen? Continue, 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 all the way down. That means that you're going to put yourself in a loss. So it's all about protections. It's all about protections. And what I'm trying to show you and what I'm trying to identify is, you need to look at this, you need to analyze these charts, and you need to think about what kind of risk management procedures and protections that you need to put in place to protect yourself. Look at each one of your cryptos within your pie chart. And if you haven't got a pie chart of crypto, you just got one token, that is a recipe for disaster, because there is millions and millions and millions of cryptocurrencies and any single one can fail. So ask yourself this question. You've got your pie, you've got your portfolio, that's diversified in accordance with risk. Whatever is in that pie chart, if that thing failed and that thing went to zero, what would it do to the overall pie chart? Would it hurt it? Would it wreck it? You need to look at risk, and you need to allocate your pie chart in accordance with risk and understand, if that thing goes to zero, your pie chart's going to be fine. And if it's not going to be fine, you need to rethink, you need to reanalyze, and you need to reassess. And the one way that you can look at how risky something is just to go in to CoinGecko, CoinMarketCap, type in the token, and it's going to give you a ranking, and it's going to give you a market cap. If the ranking is outside the top 10, top 20, top 30, then that means that you need to allocate a lower risk in accordance with your whole portfolio. You got Bitcoin, the big daddy, that'd make up the biggest part of your portfolio. You got Ethereum, you got Solana, you got XRP, you've got Cardano. They're the bigger players within a portfolio. And then you've got the big outside players, which are outside the top 100, outside the top 200. And if you're putting them in your portfolio, you need to understand that there's a chance that that thing could go to zero. So next one after that rant, YFI, Yeran Finance. This thing smashed it last cycle. I can remember this one. So waiting for a trend break. We're clumped in between two moving averages here. You've got your 200 at 5,339, and you've got your yellow 50 moving average at 5,470. So break a trend on that one, guys. We are in quite a range. When you're in a range, you can see the bottom is fair value, $4.46. The top is overbought, $4.45. When, sorry, 6,459. Get my numbers mixed up on this one, 6,459 and 4,461 at the bottom. So understanding, once you break out the top of this range, where's your resistance barrier after that? It's 10,573. 10,573. You can look. Resistance, 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 resistance. So how far away is that from price action now? That is 95% to the upside. How far away is it from the break? 62.31. See how the swings get bigger. Kusama, very similar to Polkadot. Just look at this chart with me. Now, what needs to happen? You tell me what needs to happen. We need the break of the pennant. We need to take out the 200 moving average. We need to stay above the 200 moving average. We need to reclaim this area of support. And then we've got our next resistance barrier all the way up here at $22.98, $23. $23. So that's the next resistance point. We can stick that in there. Remember, guys, clues look left. That was a shelf here. That was a shelf. That was a resistance point here. And you expect that to be a resistance point there. Chilliz next. Can you see how these charts are very similar? Chilliz taken back the 200. Chilliz taken back the 50. Chilliz taken back this level of accumulation here. So you'd expect that to act as support if we fall back on there. Ultimately, what we're waiting for the breaker trend. Where's the next resistance barrier? This previous support shelf, 0.07411. 0.07411. Stick that on there. There. Filecoin, exactly the same pattern, exactly the same move, exactly the same thing we're waiting for. There's the support shelf. That's going to be a resistance. That's $4.85. Once you get a break of trend, and once you get a break of trend there, guess what? We've got the big diagonal to contend with. And when you get a big diagonal break, that is volatile, that is hard, that is fast. SPX next. We talked about SPX. This was a cup and handle. This is a failed cup and handle. It come back in, and now we've got a rejection point of $1.72. We need to break back above $1.72 before this thing turns bullish again. So not interested in that at the moment. XPX. Look at this thing. Right, SPX. There's the shelf. There's the shelf. You can see this thing's been battered. It's been in a long accumulation phase. It's had a couple of big spikes to the upside, and it is getting rejected. So it's below the 200 daily moving average. It's below the 50 moving average. Your next resistance point is going to be your support shelf at 0.0005 at 0.005. It's got some way to get through there, yeah, and it's got some resistance barriers to get through there, yeah, but that's 118 move to the upside. And that is just to get back into this support shelf. Last but not least, Injective. See Injective looking for a trend break. We've had a trend break, and then your next resistance point on Injective is 1673. So it's failed at this level here. Why has it failed at this level? Stick a fixed range volume profile in there quickly. See if we've got, wrong one. See if we've got a resistance barrier there. Exactly to the point. Hadn't done this before yet, but these things were amazing. You could tell there was going to be a resistance barrier there, and that was going to be the area of traded, the most area of traded volume. So that's $13.97. Rejection, rejection, rejection. Break above there, you've got $16.73. Right, okay. Do you prefer these type of videos, long form videos, loads of altcoins, looking at the macro, looking at Bitcoin, looking at the S&P, looking at the Russell 2000, the total three, looking collectively at all of these charts to paint a bigger picture as to exactly what needs to happen on your altcoins? It's clear what needs to happen on the altcoins. They all need to break trend, and they all need to do something, and they are all waiting to do something now. So if you did enjoy this, where can you talk to me directly? You can get yourself on the Discord. This is where we chat with each other. There's loads of guys in here. There's over 400 people in here. And guess what? They've all got the same collective views and opinions as you. We're all in the same space together. We can help each other out together. And this is where you can talk to me directly. It's completely free. I don't charge for it. So link in the description below, and I'll see you in the next one.